Hey everyone, today we're going to set up our tier list for today's top conversational AI chatbots for business. So let me clear the board here. And this isn't a sponsored video. I just thought it'd be a fun exercise. I thought you'd all think it's interesting. I thought it'd be an opportunity to show off my streaming tricks, moving the logos around. And I thought it'd be a great way for me to share some of my thoughts on some of these solutions. First, let me explain what's going on here. When I was a kid, we had grades A through F. F was a failure, it was bad. These aren't grades, they're tiers. And it's not based on quality. If one solution is a C and another one is a D, it doesn't mean that it gave better answers. These are based on functionality, based on features. Specifically, features designed to help typical desktop workers throughout their day. Manage their emails, manage their documents, manage their chats, manage their tasks. So after we fill this out, I don't want to see in the comments, hey, how could you give this bot a higher grade than that bot? I've tested them, I know it gives more accurate answers. It didn't get a higher grade, it just didn't meet the functionality required for that tier. So it'll make more sense as I explain the requirements for each tier. Let's start with the A and B tiers. The A and B tiers share a requirement. Obviously, there's differentiation between them, but to be in either A or B, you have to be able to do this one thing. And that one feature is it has to be able to see my work as I'm working on it. For example, if I'm using ChatGPT and I want help with a Word document, ChatGPT will say, great, upload the document and I can look at it and we can work on it. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for example, with Copilot, if I open up Word and I have Copilot in the panel on the side, I can say, let's talk about this document. I don't have to tell it which document, I don't have to upload it, I don't have to share it. It sees the document as I'm working on it. Copilot does that with, well, not just Word, with other Microsoft apps, Zoom. AI Companion does it with the Zoom Workplace, and Gemini, Google Gemini does it with Google Workspace. Now, there might be other bots that have plugins or integrations that can sort of do it, but none of them natively, as far as I know, tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, as far as I know, only these three can natively do this one special trick that I think is so important because I've been working with it. It really makes a difference to be able to just, I'm working on something, an email, chat, document, whatever, and have the panel on the side and say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's have a back and forth conversation about this. So why is this split into two tiers? Why is there A and B? Well, they all have some compromises, and I think the ones that have more compromises should get into B. The ones that have less compromises should get into A. I think there should be some division among these three. However, I think that's going to be the most controversial and the toughest part of this exercise. So let's save that to the end. Let's just sort of fade these out for now. So before we move on, we have to address the top tier. I don't know when they added the S tier. It used to be A is the highest, but now they've added an S tier. And I have a specific requirement for the S tier. And as of now, none of these solutions meet it. Some of them are getting pretty close. I think some of them will be there soon, but as of now, it's a question mark. But I want to share the requirement for the S tier. And that requirement is for one unified bot that knows all of my stuff. Now, again, some of them are getting pretty close. If you go into Zoom, for example, you could say, hey, look at my emails and look at my chats and give me a bunch of to-dos. It could look in a few things at once. But if you're talking to it in docs about a doc and you shift over to emails or, you shift around, and this is true for all of them. If you're in Word and you switch over to Outlook and you say, hey, let's continue the conversation, it'll say, what conversation? We just started here. It feels like I have multiple bots, multiple friends, multiple assistants, co-pilots, companions, whatever you want to call them. When we get to the point where I just have one and whatever tab or app I'm in, I just continue the conversation, that will be our S tier. Next, let's look at our C tier. And again, a C grade wasn't such a good grade in school, but a C tier is a great tier. It's basically our top solutions that don't qualify for B and A. They don't have the ability to look at my document or whatever as I'm working live, but I can share it and I can get a lot of help, and they tend to have a lot of other features, advanced features and integrations that are great for the typical business worker. So our first C-tier solution is ChatGPT itself. It was the industry defining solution. Now it is our category, our tier defining solution. While it doesn't have the ability to easily see my work live, which would qualify it for the B or A tiers, it does have a bunch of advanced integrations and features helpful for a typical desktop worker. And by defining the C tier as basically ChatGPT, it makes it easy to define the D tier as the free version of ChatGPT. Now again, a D is not a bad grade. And to expose my own bias, I've been using from day one ChatGPT. It's still my go-to. I use it a lot. So for exactly what we're talking about, typical desktop worker stuff. So you can't give it a bad grade when it's my go-to, but it does have its limitations. There's a reason people pay for ChatGPT. It's a tier higher. As you're using free ChatGPT throughout the day, you become aware of the limitations. It'll give you a notification saying that because you're using the free version, you can't get access to this or that. Next, let's take a look at DeepSeek. DeepSeek is new, but has been getting a lot of attention. And despite being new, it seems to be very powerful and to already have a lot of integrations and power features. I could be wrong on this. And this is one of the things I'm open to it. In the comments, let me know. Or if any of my fellow experts want to sit here at the boardroom with me and redo this chart and put it somewhere else. But I think it's tier C. I think it's alongside ChatGPT. And again, some people might say, hey, no way, ChatGPT can do A, B, and C that DeepSeek can't do. Or vice versa, you might say, no way, DeepSeek can do all these things ChatGPT can't do. I'm not saying, which one would win in a head-to-head matchup, but I'm saying that they're in the same league. They're in the same tier. Oh, and I didn't bother to make a logo for free DeepSeek, but if I did, it would have been tier D. The same logic applies for ChatGPT that applies to DeepSeek. I'm not trying to clutter up the board here. Next is Claude. And I struggled the most with this one, and I still think I might have gotten it wrong. Let me know in the comments. But my thoughts were, okay, there are some things Claude does really well. On a lot of different tier boards, Claude would be the S tier above everything else here. If you're a developer, you're working with APIs, it has some stuff I don't actually really understand, but some really power features that make it exceptional. But for what we're talking about here, for typical desktop work, I just don't think that's what it's about. I don't think that's where it shines. Now, obviously, you could ask it anything. You could ask free ChatGPT, so it at least goes there, which is great. D tier is not a D grade. That's great, but I'm not sure that it belongs in C. If you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Now, before we move on to our last two, there's another D tier solution that's worth mentioning. I didn't make a logo for it, but Copilot for Windows. That's the one that's the button on your keyboard that we didn't ask for. You press it and a Copilot app opens up on your desktop. That's Copilot for Windows. And it's tier-wise the same as free ChatGPT. It doesn't have any of the advanced features. It certainly can't see your documents live as the A and B tier solutions do, but it can answer your questions. I didn't want to make a logo for it because I thought it might be confusing with the Copilot up in the A and B tier. And at this point, there's so many Copilots, I just can't possibly make logos for all of them. Okay, down to our last two, RingCentral and Cisco, both of which have AI assistants. Now, some of you may be questioning including them because they don't really have a standalone conversational AI chatbot that I treat as a person and I have an ongoing conversation with as all the others do. Their AI assistants are more about things like meeting summaries and prompt-based conversational assistants like helping me reword my chat messages. The reason I'm including them is, the reason I think they deserve to be talked about here is what they're doing with AI is industry leading and really impressive. And it does feel persona-based, it does feel agentic. No, they don't have that separate app or that separate panel where I can just sort of talk to it about my day, but it does feel like it does have a presence, especially what they're doing in contact center. It does feel like there is an actual assistant helping you. So let's add them to the board down in our F tier. And again, this is not an F grade. This is not a failure. This is an F tier, which means they met the qualifications of having a persona feeling AI assistant that helps me with my tasks, but they don't meet the qualifications of the higher levels, which is the persistent conversational AI. Okay, I can't stall any longer. Let's get to the part that I'm going to get in trouble for, ranking Microsoft, Zoom, and Google. Now, all three have, and as far as I know, only these three have the feature which qualifies them for the A and B tiers, which is they can see my work live as I'm working on it. However, as I said before, they all have their pros and cons. They all have their compromises. So let's start by looking at Microsoft Copilot. My first thought is it's A tier, because the reason it's A and B tier is it could see my live work, but it could see my live work in Office 365. Most of you, a big most of you, are using Office 365. So if what I think is important is for it to be able to see my work and help me work, and this can do it in the tools that we're all using to work in Word, in PowerPoint, and Excel, obviously it's A tier. However, and I'm not alone in this, what they're doing with their licensing model and a new version every time I turn my head, it's making everyone crazy. It's making it way too complicated. And assuming you could figure out the different licensing and different versions and what you need and what you want, it's expensive, $30 per users per month, especially when the others are, well, free with an account. So I'm sitting here on the fence. Do I keep it in A because Office 365, or do I drop it down to B because of all the confusing licensing? And then I had an experience with it. I was trying to research they came out with new Copilot Office 365 chat. I was trying to figure out what that was. So I opened up a Word document and I have a Copilot panel on the right. And it turns out it wasn't the new chat thing. I'm still not sure what it was, but I asked it to summarize my doc and it did it. So it did the thing that makes it an A or a B that I love so much. It saw my document live. And then it said, that used one of your credits. If you use up all your credits and you ask me for help, you have to open up your wallet first. And okay, they're not the only one who does the credit thing. With all the other confusing licensing stuff they're doing, to then hit me with the credit thing, at some point I have to penalize them. So Copilot is going down in B. If you think I'm wrong, if you think it should be up in A, let me know in the comments. I'm open to being wrong, but that's where I'm putting it for now. Next is Zoom. My first thought was to put Zoom in the B tier because it's not native with Office 365, and Office 365 is Office 365. Zoom Workplace is great. A lot of people are using it and love it, but there's not as many people using Zoom Docs as there are people using Word, and Zoom has to take a hit for that. So I was going to put it down in B. Also, I have a lot of Zoom tutorials on my website. I have a lot of friends at Zoom. I'm worried about people thinking I'm biased here, so I was going to hit them harder and put them down in B. But you have to give Zoom credit for AI Companion being free with your Zoom account, and for there being only one version of AI Companion. I'm not the only one who thinks so. Ask my fellow analysts, especially compared to what Microsoft is doing with Copilot. Zoom deserves a lot of credit for making it easy. So again, I may take some heat for this, and I'm willing to admit I might be wrong. Maybe it is a B. Maybe I have no business putting it in A, but for now, I'm putting it in A. If you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. And finally, Google Gemini. Google Gemini basically has the same analysis as Zoom. It loses some points by not being Office 365, but it's Google Workspace. There's plenty of people using it. I also wanted to ding it because there is a Google Gemini Advanced for another $20 a month that has more Gemini, and I want to keep it simple. I like the one version, but it's just the one version. It's not the however many versions there are with Copilot. So I'm not going to drop it down to B for that. So that is also going to wind up as a tier A. So there's our final tier list. And if you're just clicking to this part of the video and you're starting now, these are not grades. F is not a failure. These are all great solutions. These are all industry leaders. The tiers are just about certain features that are required to be within each tier. I can't wait to see which vendor gives us the first tier S solution, the one conversational AI chatbot that I can talk about everything throughout the day without switching to other bots when I'm in different tabs. Not one for my documents and one for my emails and one for my chat, just the one helping David through his day bot. Now, I tried to lay out objective criteria for each tier, but obviously I made some subjective choices when I did the final placements. So I'm inviting my analyst friends from the community to join me. You can sit right here. We'll reset the board, and I want to see where they place these solutions, see how their tier lists play out. I hope you all enjoyed this as much as I did. This is a fun one for me. I probably got a lot of stuff wrong. I'm open to it. Let me know in the comments, and thanks so much for watching, and please like and subscribe.